Hi, I'm Fernando Bernal. I want to thank you for your investment on the SpiralFlow method of joint mobility and for the commitment that you made to yourself to improve your joint health. This video is the introductory video to the entire set and is perhaps one of the most important videos that you will watch because it will lay the foundation upon which new videos in the future will build on. So we're going to cover three components that are very vital to the SpiralFlow method. One is breath work, two is going to be posture, body alignment, and three is going to be the constant bear, and I will explain each one of them as we go along. First thing we want to talk about is body alignment. As you know, if our bodies are misaligned, that's when we begin to have types of problems with the joints because we're dealing with gravity. We must remember that there are at least three constants whenever we exercise: the ground, gravity, and the body. And as long as all three are working in harmony, we can keep ourselves from getting injured. So to align ourselves properly, there are several components that we need to keep in mind. First is the knees. When we stand on the SpiralFlow method, and for that matter, whenever you stand anywhere, you ought to always try to keep your knees slightly bent. You do not want to lock your knees. So the knees must be slightly flexed, a little bent. Second, the feet ought to be parallel, and for some of the exercises we'll point the feet to the side, but for now, parallel to each other. Next is the pelvis. The pelvis is very important that we keep properly aligned. Now the word pelvis means container, and as a container, the pelvis contains all the structure that's above us, the organs, the stomach, the intestines, the bladder, all of this is contained in the pelvis. If the pelvis is tilted forward, then we misalign ourselves and we have excessive curvature of the lumbar spine. If the pelvis is tilted this way, then we have a similar problem. So we want to keep the pelvis as level as possible, and that we do by tucking the pelvis in gently. So but when we do that, we flatten the lumbar spine a bit. So we have the knee slightly bent and the pelvis tilted. Second, you want to keep that your shoulders stay down through the entire set, except the ones where we actually deliberately raise the shoulders. We will keep the shoulders down so that we don't have to bring the traps into any of the exercises unless it requires that. Next, we want to make sure that our chin stays tucked in. Now, one of the analogies that we use, like in Tai Chi, is to think in lines that you're being suspended by the crown of your head. So if my head was held up here like this, this will automatically cause my chin to tuck in. By a tucked in chin, that does not mean that we are forcing ourselves. It's just a matter of bringing the chin in, elongating the cervical spine here, and it will be the opposite, will be this, or sticking my neck out. We want to maintain it in such a fashion so that the curvature of the cervical spine is minimized and my chin is tucked in, but not forced tucked in. As long as we keep those alignments in mind, the knees slightly bent, the pelvis properly tilt, the chin tucked in, and the shoulders down, we have then aligned ourselves properly to gravity. Remember, gravity is always pulling on our body, and if we're out of misalignment, then we are going to be, in time, creating more problems for ourselves. Whenever you exercise, if you're lifting weights and your body's misaligned, you compound on a problem, okay? Next, we're going to deal with a very important subject, and no matter what type of exercise you engage yourself in or what type of sport, this is a very vital component for endurance, for proper functioning of the nervous system, and I'm speaking of the breath, how to properly breathe when we do any exercise, but it's a vital component of the SpiralFlow method. Most people, when they're breathing, they're doing what we call shallow breathing or chest breathing. And so you ask somebody to take a deep breath, and what happens, their chest expands. So it says, take a deep breath, and you go, and this gets real, bigger in the chest. And that's not what we want to do. What we want to do is to do abdominal breathing. Abdominal breathing then requires that the abdomen expands when we take a deep breath and then contracts or sucks in when you exhale. So let me show you from the side what it would look like if I was doing abdominal breathing during just standing still here. So here's my stomach, and I'm going to take a deep breath and expand my abdomen when I inhale. So it goes. Exhale. Inhale. So it helps if you take your hand and place it on your abdomen, and then you can feel your hand pushing out as you inhale and sucks in as you exhale. Think of it as if you were filling a balloon with water or with air. So I pour air in, and of course this will expand, and then as it goes out, this will contract. When you do abdominal breathing, there are a number of benefits. First, you are then allowing more air to go into the lower parts of your lungs. As you may know, the lungs are divided into 3 lobes or 3 sections, each one of the lungs. And most people are just putting air on the upper chambers of the lungs and not bringing sufficient air to the lower parts. When we do not bring sufficient air to the lower parts of the lung, we go into an oxygen deficit. If you're working out real hard and you're not doing deep breathing, you're going to fatigue much quicker. The other advantage of doing abdominal breathing is that you are dropping the diaphragm and in a way giving your internal organs a massage, if you will. So that's another advantage of doing that. Deep breathing is also very essential in relaxation. When people do shallow breathing and breathe through their chest only, it's easy to become anxious, and if you haven't already suffering with anxiety or you're in a very stressful moment and you begin to do more shallow breathing, you compound the problem. So if you train yourself from the beginning to do abdominal breathing, drop the diaphragm, inhale, let the abdomen expand, exhale, let it contract, you will benefit much more, you will have more endurance, and in the long run, you'll become healthier. Now, let me give you an example of how you can improve on your abdominal breathing for a minute. All right, so a couple of things we need to understand. First of all, whenever you're laying down, when you're sleeping, you're automatically breathing through your abdomen. Just the body's own wisdom. You do it on your own. When babies sleep, they sleep and they breathe through their abdomen. And we do too. It is when we stand up that we become shallow breathers and we do chest breathing. So one thing you can do to begin to train yourself and to become more aware of your breathing, and later you won't have to think about this at all, it'll just happen naturally, is to lay down and place an object on your abdomen and actually work with it to bring the book or whatever you put on your abdomen up and down. So I'll show you. I'm going to use a kettlebell, and it's a light kettlebell. So it's not a very heavy kettlebell. This is only 10 pounds. But for the sake of illustration, I've got the kettlebell here in my abdomen by my belly button. And I'm going to inhale, and you will see, I'm going to lay like this so it doesn't fall off, and you will see the bell rise as I inhale. As I exhale, it's saying, see? Naturally, I am exaggerating the process in order to teach this concept, but you wouldn't be doing it that high. But when you're practicing in the beginning, place a book or any object, kettlebell, any object like this, and deliberately use the muscles to push the object up, in this case the kettlebell, as you inhale. So again, I'll show you one more time. I inhale. Exhale. So it becomes an actual exercise that you would do yourself. Actually push the muscles out. So if I'm sitting here, I can do the same thing. I can place my hand on my abdomen and use muscles to push my hand out. Like I'm actually using muscles to push this out. And I'm going to use muscles to suck the hand back in. Later, you don't do that. Automatically happens, you relax your abdomen, the diaphragm drops, and your abdomen expands. As you exhale, your abdomen contracts again, and this way your blood becomes richer, becomes healthier. And if you're doing any kind of exercise that's endurance nature, demanding, where you're doing running or you're doing any grappling, anything that requires endurance, if you continue doing deep abdominal breathing while you exercise, you will last longer because you will have more oxygen to provide for the muscles, okay? All right, so to recap, two concepts we need to first appreciate. One is proper body alignment, meaning the knees are slightly bent, the pelvis is tilted, the chin is tucked in, the shoulders are down. And then second, we want to be mindful of our breathing. We want to do always abdominal breathing. The abdomen expands with the inhalation and it contracts when we exhale. As long as we maintain those two principles in mind throughout all the SpiralFlow method of joint mobility, we will have productive practice. If we begin to have misalignment, then we're going to actually go backwards. We're not going to help ourselves. And if we don't do deep abdominal breathing through the process, we'll fatigue. So we don't want to do that. Remember, joint mobility, it's about lubricating the joints with synovial fluid. And to start with, we're going to work on one more little exercise that would be like a warm-up, if you will, called the constant bear. And the constant bear was made famous by a Tai Chi master that came to America many years ago, Professor Jingman Ching. And he said that the constant bear was the embodiment of all Tai Chi. And when I first heard that or read that, it didn't make any sense. But as the years have gone by and I continue my practice of these arts, I've begun to understand why that is such an important exercise and why it's a good example of what Tai Chi principle is about. To start with, again, remember, we need to maintain the knees bent, the pelvis tilt, the chin tucked in, the shoulders down. And what the constant bear does is that it allows me to learn to let go of muscular tension on my shoulders. My arms are simply going for the ride. They just totally relax. I am not moving my arms, I am moving my torso. I'm shifting from left to right and letting my arms go for the ride. So if somebody said to me, stop, I would stop and the arms will continue to move because they were just hanging in there. And you'd be surprised how much muscular tension people carry on their shoulders. They don't learn to let go of shoulder tension. They're driving and they're like this. They're in the kitchen and they're like this. They're on the computer and they're like this. And not learn to let go. The constant bear begins to teach you to gently let go of muscular tension while at the same time giving your body a light warm-up. Now, don't do this. This is what people think we're doing, this kind of thing. I'm not doing that. That's not what we want to do. That may have value of its own, but that's not what we're doing. We're simply just swinging back and forth and letting the arms go for the ride. I am gently putting pressure on one leg as I swing to the other side and vice versa. The upper rotation that you see is happening mostly on my thoracic spine and not so much on my lumbar spine. The lumbar spine is only meant to rotate so many degrees, so that's why we don't want to do ballistic type of movement. It is very gentle and relaxed. Do this every day. Professor Cheng suggested to his patients that they do this at least 100 times or 100 reps. So this would be like 1, 2, 3, and so on. Totally relax. Okay, so that's the constant bear. So here's what you have to work on. You need to work on standing properly aligned, breathing, and the constant bear. Now, as far as standing goes, we think that we can remind ourselves to stand properly. And we can't. We go about life and we forget these things. So next thing you know, you're like this, or you're walking like this, and you just can't remind yourself to walk or to stand properly. So what you need to do is to engage yourself in some form of discipline that you practice on a regular basis so that your body becomes re-educated to properly align itself to gravity. And for that, we have what we call standing meditation. And I would like you to incorporate that as part of your training. And standing is simply what I told you earlier. You're standing with your knees slightly bent, your pelvis tilt, your chin tucked in, your shoulders down, and you stand there. And when you do that, do it with a timer. Set your timer the first week for 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. And when you do it, you do not want to be answering the phone or watching TV. This is a time for you to re-educate your body to align itself properly to gravity by practicing a method that will do that. Just reminding yourself to do it's not going to work. So here's what we do. Stand here. Your feet are parallel. Your knees are slightly bent. Your pelvis is tilted. Your chin is tucked in. Your shoulders to the side. Relax down. Take the middle finger and see to it that it's aligned around the seam of your pants. So in other words, you won't have your shoulders protracted like so, nor will you have your chest sticking out. It'll be in balance. And you stand there. Have your tongue to the roof of the mouth and just relax that. Just do that for 5 minutes every day for the first week. Put a timer on and relax. The second week, add another 5 minutes. And I'm going to be reminding you of this throughout the whole series because it's an important component. The third week, another 5 minutes. After a while, you'll be able to stand still and feel rejuvenated just from the actual standing by just doing it on a regular basis. This is a practice that is done by many Chinese masters, been doing it for many years. I have been doing it for many years, and it's very powerful, and it re-educates your body to properly stand. Okay? Thank you, and I'll see you next time.